the JBR Podcast.
Wake up and check it out.
Where music and life connects. Let's go.
I had to start recording because that's a good story. Come on.
Sure, I can tell it again.
Yeah, tell it again because I was
So,
clicking away on things and wasn't fully listening.
so listen, amongst the Irish O'Haras in the world, there's a lot of young men named Tony. And that's what I discovered. You wouldn't think that that pairing would happen so often. But I did discover through Googling that there are thousands of us and many musicians. So many. I could make an orchestra. But my mother gave me that middle name, Ivan, which differentiated me from the other Tony O'Haras. Because in my mom's family, there are 5 million people named John. And she said, let's not give him John, because her dad and my uncle and various others. So she gave me the Russian derivation, which is where my grandfather came from. It's a little town called Arkadak that no one's heard of.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I can kind of relate. Like after my dad passed, and his name was Buddy, and I was working with Tom Lavin, and we had Googled James Rogers, and there was some country guy, and I had connected with this guy because sometimes he's like, who the fuck are you? Because I get people reaching out to him thinking he's a blues guy, but I get people reaching out to me because
him and Jimmy,
he's a country guy.
Of course, Jimmy Rogers. Yeah. And then to make it worse, I think I heard you tell the story one time that you were on a bill that Jimmy D. Lane was on. And of course, Jimmy D. Lane is Jimmy Rogers' son. So we got to do all we can do. So is Buddy, is Buddy actually in your name? Like, are you an actual,
No.
Okay. But your dad was Buddy.
No, my dad was, yeah.
Man, no one's named Buddy anymore. I don't think.
Yeah, well, but Buddy Guy.
Sure, but Buddy's in his 80s.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I hear you. Going back to that Jimmy D. Lane one, because I had heard about that. Actually, I wasn't on the gig with him. Like, I have played with him, but apparently, because it's a big deal that he's the son of the Jimmy Rogers, right? And they were like, the son of James Rogers is what the posters.
Oh, no. They're like, how does the math work out here?
Yeah.
I love it.
That was funny.
The comedy of life. It's everywhere. You don't have to work at it.
So before we get into like how you got started and stuff, I want to know, because you had the Strongbow and Rye, you guys won to go down to the IBCs. So how was it? I haven't even got to talk to you.
It was
about much of the experience
just a ridiculously cool experience. So we got down there and the weather was terrible. So as you're probably aware from your own experience, January in Memphis, like in my brain, growing up as a Canadian kid, is sort of the inverse of the American, the old stereotype. Oh, they come across the border. Where's the igloos? So as an ignorant Canadian kid, I always thought, oh yeah, it's always sunny in Memphis. But no, it turns out no, it's not. And so everything was frozen. There was snow everywhere. Hilariously, apparently they've had these winters for the last few years, but Memphis drivers are still not really used to it. So ain't nobody got snow tires in Memphis. Let me tell you that right now. That should probably be a blues song. Ain't nobody got snow tires in Memphis. So we get picked up by an Uber at the airport, and this thing is skidding all over the place, but it got us safely to our spot. And big ups to Cora and Bill for booking a beautiful, holy smokes, what a nice place. And so of course I'm all excited. I want to get downtown Memphis and see what's what, get down on Beale. And of course we go the next day and almost everything is closed. Like, I got to go to, Buddy Guy's Blues Room. Well, you can't because it's not open. I want to go to Jerry Lawler's, barbecue place or whatever. No, you can't go there either. So there was a gift store. Oh, gee, this is and so one of the things I bought on my first day there was, of course, some proper Memphis merch, which is probably made in Asia. But so I've got this great Memphis shirt, which I'm going to show off now because this will get views. So there's, of course, with the Telecaster. And I don't know what you're going to see. Hopefully it's not my butt. But so that was my takeaway from day one being a tourist in Memphis. But I will say pretty quickly they got things running because, you don't know the scope of the IBCs until you're in Memphis. Like, I'm used to Canadian music festivals and things like that where, you got a handful of bands. There were just dozens. Like we had 12 bars, which I love the symmetry of that. Whoever designed the IBC thing, they're obviously blues fans because they have so many little inside things. But yeah, there's 12 bars hosting blues bands, so 12 bar blues, beautiful. And of course, every bar's got a bunch of artists, some of whom are unbelievable. So in our bracket, so Jenny Bice and I make up Strongbow and Rye, as you know. And in our bracket, we had the eventual winner in the solo duo category, a guy named Joe Waters. I don't know if you've had a chance to check him out. Joe is astonishing. And so on the very first night when we're playing our stuff, and we've got our set worked out, pretty good. We've timed it. We've done all those things that no musician likes to do, but you do it because you have to. So we've got this down more or less to the minute, minus banter and extensive soloing, which I do because I've forgotten lyrics. And so we're playing all's well. Well, we see Joe Waters gets up and play, and we're just like, holy smokes, who's beating this guy? And well, turns out nobody. But so we had in our bracket Joe Waters, well worth listen. We had a kid named, I'll call him a kid because I'm old, but he's in his 20s, named Jesse Redwing, great player from Australia. We had Charlie Musselwhite's daughter was in our bracket, Layla. That led to some kind of unintentional comedy, or maybe intentional comedy, because listen, I play music. I love the blues, but I've got no pedigree. I mean, so my stories, what am I going to say? I wrote this song hanging out with my friend Jason Barron in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, which is true, but ain't nobody going, Jason Barron, wow. Yeah, I had his album from the 70s. So Layla, every song, she's got a story. She's like, this song Charlie played, my dad, Charlie Musselwhite, played on his album with Muddy Waters was doing this, and you know we're going, okay, well, we don't have that street cred, so that wasn't working in our favor. But we played our little hearts out. I'll tell you a funny story. The first night, so before we went to Memphis, uh I realized I really need some nice outfits. I don't have any proper blues musician outfits, and to this day I don't have any proper blues musician outfits.
Neither do
I
I.
know we have this in common. And so I'm like, I'm gonna get me a fancy shirt. So I go to Rex Cox. They get a shout out on this podcast in Mission. The one men's clothing store in Mission, besides the new one. There's a new one called Cameron Cole, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He gets a shout out too. So I go in there and I'm like, I need a good blues shirt. Well, I see this shirt and it's kind of tacky, it's kind of gaudy, but it definitely is a look at me shirt. Not necessarily for the right reasons, but it's definitely a look at me shirt. So I go ahead, I try it on. I'm going, yeah, yeah, all right, this is cool. Now, pointedly, I don't consult my wife or my youngest daughter, who has an eye for these things. Either of them, I just go ahead and I go, you know what? I'm not going to ask my wife because I know she's not going to like it. Now, the fact that I knew that probably should have told me everything.
Yeah,
But I was like,
totally.
she's just wrong. She's wrong. This shirt is great. It is white with blue and gold, kind of in a paisley pattern. It kind of looked like Buddy's guy's guitar had thrown up. So I put this on and I'm like, yeah, this is blues. It's good. So I, I don't show it to her. We go to Memphis and a lady is live streaming our performance on the first night. And I'm wearing this shirt. And to top it off, I've got a vest because I figure, blues people wear vests. This should be a vest. So I get that on. I'm playing. So my wife decides to tune in and catch the set. She turns on the she turns on the stream, and one of my kids walks through the room, and the first word out of this kid's mouth is, "What is Dad wearing?" And I think we're killing it. Jenny is just, you've heard her play fiddle, so she's just killing it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm singing real good, and we're playing, and it's tight. And so I talked to her a little later on that night, and she says, before anything else, she says, "What was with that shirt?" Like, what do you mean? I thought it was cool. She's like, "You were wrong." She said, our kid walked through the living room, and that's all they could focus on. She said, so I said, well, how do we sound? And she says, I couldn't get past the shirt, so I had to turn it off. So, so she's supportive, but that only goes so far. That only goes so far.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing about it is, I feel like by you choosing a shirt like that, you're kind of on the mark in terms of the politics of the
You're
IBC,
not wrong.
because no, because it's like silly hat season down there, you know, because everybody dresses up in a blues hat, they
Right.
buy the blues shirt, and they get the blues vest, and they dress the part. Because the first time I went down there, and I knew a lot of people over the U.S. and they've been involved with the IBCs for way longer than I've ever participated in it. And the number one thing that they brought to me was like, dress the part, dress the
Right.
part. And what drove me fucking nuts on that was the same thing my agents used to do to me when I was a kid in the 90s. And when I was working with Feldman, they got me this gig and they said, oh, it's a cattle call. You got to be an 18-year-old homeless kid with ripped jeans and messy hair, but you play the blues. Like, that's the part,
Yeah.
you know, and it's a cattle call. There's 500 people. I wore a fucking suit. One of the only times I ever wore a suit in my life, other than going to court, you know, like I wore a suit and I got the part.
Oh, gee.
And I didn't want the part, right? And it's like the same thing with Memphis, you know. Oh, dress the part. Who gives a fuck what I look
Right.
like? Isn't it about what you sound like? That's always driven me nuts.
Yep.
But the fact that you got the shirt and the people maybe not tuned into that politic of like, you'll be good if you wear a vest. If you wear this hat and this vest, you're going to be good.
Oh,
You're going to
man.
increase your chances of winning.
It's a thing.
You know, it
It's a
drives me nuts.
thing.
But now I want to see the shirt. I want
Oh,
to
I'll
see the
post a
shirt.
picture on my Facebook page because yeah, there's a picture of me.
You got,
It's so, and I look at it and it's like it's awful. Like it is objectively awful. Like if you've ever watched the What Not to Wear show, I'm sure they would have said, "No, what are you doing? What are you doing?" So I did have a backup shirt. I had a black and white striped shirt, which is what I normally wear. So insider tip for people who aren't fat middle-aged guys: vertical stripes are slimming. Listen, it can only go so far, but it helps a little. Uh, so vertical stripes. So I wore my vertical striped shirt and my vest. I kept that vest. Got to have the vest. And that was a better outfit. And when I said that to my wife, she's like, "Yeah, that works. That's good." But yeah, so I think that first night shirt might have been too offensive for the judges, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, so we played our hearts out. We didn't make it out of the first round, which was, of course, it was disappointing. But you're kind of going, you know, for the people who got through. There was also a kid out of California who's a blues prodigy. He's in his 20s now, but this guy's been touring with Rick Estrin and Charlie Musselwhite, and apparently James Cotton was one of his mentors. And just a young guy, but great. Like his harmonica skills were ridiculous. And so, yeah, we sort of saw the lay of the land, and we kind of went, okay, well, we know Joe Waters is going forward. We know that Jesse Red Wing's probably going forward, and we know probably Harmonica McGee, whose name I've forgotten because I've had a lot of concussions. He's going. So we're angling for that fourth spot. That's what we're hoping for, and we didn't manage the fourth spot. But the beautiful thing at that point is once you're gone, we played our two nights. We had a ball. We played a showcase, which was also fun. We made a bunch of new friends and a bunch of new fans, which was cool. And but after that, you're just having a good time in Memphis. And of all the towns you can go to in the world, Memphis is pretty much certainly the places I've been. It's a fun town. Great ribs and barbecue, check. Great music, check. Great people, like I love the people that I encountered in Memphis, and I absolutely fell in love with the accent and with the how everyone says appreciate you. You hear that like 1,000 times. Appreciate you. That one and what I'm trying to remember. There was a few other ones. I'll tell you a fun story. So when Jenny and I booked our trip, we did a lot of fundraising and we had beautiful people that donated and the Dudney was a great support for that. Cora and Bill were a great support for that. Scott Boys, we gigged out at his place. Great stuff. And a lot of people from our open mic at the Dudney on Thursdays donated to the cause, and some of my coworkers. But I was determined that on our night back, we had the Airbnb until the day before we flew out. Like we had to be out for about 11, but the flight was going to be at 4 in the morning. So I decided to splurge, and I went through Expedia and found a hotel near the airport, really close to Graceland, actually. And it was for a two-bedroom hotel room. It was $80, I think, Canadian. $80 Canadian, and it looked okay. Looked okay. Well, we get there, and this place, if you've ever watched CSI, you have seen a hotel just like this one. And some prostitute has killed some John in this hotel. And I think we saw some of that going on. There was definitely a fella having a talk with his girl and saying, "You can't talk to the customers like." So it
Fuck.
was an experience. So Jenny and I get this room because we need to stay somewhere. I just want somewhere I can crash for, a few hours before we fly out really early. And so we get the room. There's nothing there. We've got all the food we've brought from the Airbnb, mostly cheese, but also juice and some dips for some reason. Anyway, we need cheese. We need a knife to cut the cheese, to cut into the cheese. I have children, so they'd laugh at that. We need a knife to cut into the cheese.
So would mine.
So I go to the front desk and I ask them, "Hey, you guys got any cutlery? Like, I noticed you have a restaurant. You got like cutlery?" And they're like, "Cutlery? I don't know. I don't know, man." It's like, oh, I don't know. And this is at like, I don't know, it's 9 o'clock or something. Let me see what I got. So guy goes, leaves for a few minutes, comes back. He says, "I got cutlery," and he's got a bunch of plastic cutlery. He says, and then he hands them over and he says, "They all spoons though."
Can't give
They
me a
all
knife.
spoons though, and he hands us 20 plastic spoons. It was just the best. Like, honestly, I was the whole time I'm going, I have to remember everything that's happening because no one will believe these stories. Also, there was supposed to be a shuttle bus. That's part of the reason I booked this $80 hotel. They had a shuttle bus to the airport. And I said on the website, you guys got a shuttle bus. Is that a thing? And they're like, "Oh, that's Joey. Is Joey doing shuttle bus?" And then the one lady, the one lady at the checkout, she makes this face. She goes, and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think Joey's doing the shuttle bus anymore." So we got an Uber, and that was a good experience. Uh, yeah, musically, it was astounding. I tell you, the big come away for me, and maybe it was the same when you went down. What I left with after visiting Memphis was the realization that in order to really be a contender, for lack of a better term, or to go deep in there, you got to be gigging all the time. And so Jenny and I were chatting about that. So the guy who won it, Joe, again, any blues fan listening to this who likes acoustic blues, especially, check this guy out. He's touring with George Thorogood right now, and just a wicked player. But Joe gigged something like 300 times in 2023. And Jenny and I were chatting. As a duo, we gigged maybe 10 times in 2023. So it did light a fire under me. Like, I will tell you, I'm not gigging near as much as I'd like to be gigging, but my hands are on that guitar neck as often as they possibly can be. And I'm writing constantly in the last, like, since we got back from Memphis. Jenny and I have practiced a lot more frequently when we can, and I'm just writing, and hoping to get some good stuff going because we'd like to go back. It was definitely
Yeah.
just for the experience, even. But of course,
Yeah.
if you're competitive, and who isn't, like, yeah, I want to get deeper into that. But it was great.
For sure. Yeah, no, Memphis was a great experience all around. I did most of my memories and experiences were outside of that competition side of subjectiveness.
Yeah,
But I want to say your hotel experience, it resonates with me because I've had many of those experiences. And my one, Memphis doesn't seem to be shy of them. I remember we didn't do an Airbnb when I went down with Mike Wedge and James Badger at the time. And I can't remember if it was the first or second time we went down. But I found this hotel. It was probably 3 blocks from Beale Street. So me and the guys decided, like, okay, well, that's not too far of a walk to
right.
boot back and forth. We don't need to do Ubers. Like, we're trying to figure out, like, okay, well,
Stay
we'll
familiar.
raise money, but then we'll buy these, get our own rooms. So I find this, well, it's not even there anymore. It's like shut down, abandoned. So it says on it, like, just note that the elevator's broken, right? So when I book the rooms, it's like, well, we got the first floor. So who gives a shit about the elevator, right? You get the first floor. But what they didn't tell us was that the first floor was the 7th floor. There was 6 floors of parkade. And we nearly killed ourselves going up and down those
And you're
steps.
schlepping gear?
And there was a guy, and we're schlucking gear. But there were the guys at the thing, they had this like SUV, and they were like, oh, well, we'll come get you, right? Just call down. So we would call, and they'd be like, we'll be right up. We're leaving right now. And it's like, to go to 7 floors, that's like, I don't know, you should be there within 5 minutes. 20 minutes later, we're standing in the parking lot, parkade area with all our gear. And then the guy's not coming, and we're calling down the front. Oh, yeah, he's on his way. He's on his way. He just left, right? And then all you could hear is like tires squealing through the dry parkade, right? As he's rounding these corners. And we get in this thing. He leaves the tailgate open. We put our gear, and we sit on it like we're on the back of a pickup truck in the early 80s as kids. You know, it's just the craziest.
I love it.
The craziest thing. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of cool memories like that in Memphis for sure.
And everyone you encounter is so charming that no matter how ridiculous the situation, you can't be mad at it because it's real. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I think every person I dealt with, every person we talked to, they're just, they're nobody putting on airs that's down in Memphis. They don't care. They're just being them.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. But we did see our fair share of hats.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't doubt that. So aside from the Strongbow and Rye, like what other projects have you got going on? I know you're doing that acoustic thing there at the old Church of the Blues, Dudney Pub.
Yeah.
Is that every Thursday?
Every Thursday. So my buddy Michael Jansen and I, we switch off. And so every Thursday, 6:30 is a thing there. And hi, Kitty. And we go, usually go till about 9:30. And what's been fun about that is it's been a really cool way to find out who's in the area, like who's good, who's doing their thing. I am a great lover of open mics. I know musicians have a love-hate with open mics, and I understand that. I respect it. But I will say, when I started doing any kind of regular performing, I am not a super confident performer guy. I've written songs since I was a child, but I didn't perform them. I was terrified to perform them, and the home that I grew up in did not encourage me to play music. It wasn't until I moved in with my mom and my stepdad, who I consider my dad, that I started doing music in public because my mom's name is Ruth. She's a tremendously great piano player and singer and violin player. And then my dad, Claude O'Hara, he was just a fisherman, like no music in him, but great love for it. And so when I moved out east to Cape Breton, because I'd grown up in Ontario, that was what got it going. Is everyone played music out there, and it was in the early '90s. So Stevie Ray Vaughan was really popular still out there, and well, still, I mean, whatever. But I hadn't grown up around blues really at all. The first blues that I heard was U2 with BB King doing "When Love Comes to Town." But I will tell you, I remember hearing that song, and it was life changing because I'd never heard anyone sing like that, and I hadn't heard anyone play guitar like that. And I know there's a lot of people hate on that song, and that's fine. But for a kid who grew up on the Beatles and Bowie and the Who, and all of a sudden I'm hearing this, and then I'm hearing Hendrix, and my life was changed like dramatically by that. So I didn't know anything about Stevie Ray Vaughan except he was that guy. Don't hate me for this. He was that guy that played on Let's Dance with David Bowie. That's what I knew about him. That's awful, but it's true. And so I remember my buddy Jason Barron was playing some Hendrix for me. He was just getting me into it, and he played Little Wing. And I went, that might be the best song I've heard in my whole life. And he said, you haven't heard the Stevie Ray Vaughan version by. So he plays me the Stevie Ray Vaughan version. I'm going, like my brain is just going. And I said, this guy's amazing. I want to see this guy play live. And he's like, oh, I got bad news, Tony. He died like 3 years ago. Terrible. Anyways, I don't know how we got there, but that's where we got. So projects, yes, open mic at the old Dudney. So I started playing music publicly really in about 2007. when a guy named Roger Potter had an open mic out of Abbotsford, and I just went with 3 songs and gave it a go, and people responded well, and that got the performing bug in me. And every band that I've been in since then has had at least one person that I met at an open mic. So Jenny and I met at her open mic that she used to host at Sistos, and the other band I'm in called Roads Unknown. Everyone in that band we met at open mic, including Jenny again. And I was in a band that you might remember from 2015, 16 called Laser Cats. And that was a
Yep.
band. My wife was in that band, and Alicia Line, who was a session vocalist and is absolute powerhouse. We met through open mic. We had met apparently at Capilano College a million years prior. And then Saul Jansen, again, open mic. Aaron Manning was our drummer from church, but and then James Blight, who was my wife's old buddy. So that band was, you know, 3 of the members we met through open mic, and so it's a great place to meet other musicians. If you want to get paid to be a musician, of course, it's a terrible gig. But I will say that what I did before I started hosting it is I would often use open mic as my testing room. So if I thought a song was any good, I'd play it at open mic and see if it connected. And the song that's kind
Uh-huh.
of become like, listen, I'll say it's a signature song, but you know, there's maybe 500 people in the world have heard this song, but still. So this, I have a song called "Mess with My Blues," which people seem to like. And that song I thought was so stupid. I wrote it in about 5 minutes when I was playing for my kids as they were going to bed. And but it was kind of fun. And I was playing at open mic, and I wanted to play something I hadn't played there before, so I played that one. And I was like, I just played it. I didn't give it any preamble. I just played it. And afterwards, I must have had, I don't know, half the room. I was like, whose song was that one? I was like, well, that's mine. Like, well, when did you write that one? I don't know, a while back. And like, you should write more songs like that. And I'm like, what? What are you,
That song
what are you
sucks.
talking about? Like, I'm just ripping off BB King the whole time. The chords, it's basically the thrill is gone. But now, you know, secrets, very obvious secrets. But yeah, so I love open mic for testing out music, and also sometimes I'll run into somebody and be like, "Hey, let's get up and jam and see if there's any magic there." And you know, often there is. I love that. So yeah, I do that. Obviously, Roads Unknown and the Strombo and Rye, and but Laser Cats was a really good learning experience for me. We had an absolute ball. That was one of the most fun bands I've ever been in because everyone had a sense of humor, and there was all this talent. So it was a fun band to be in. I will tell you, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I'm a lifelong member of the Imposter Syndrome Club. And there were many times in that band where I was like, how am I standing on stage with these guys? Because I felt so, you know, I don't know why I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, I think I sing okay, I write okay, I play okay, but I'm singing next to people who are just killing it. And I mean, especially, you know, listening to Alicia sing or listen to Saul play guitar or any of what was going on, I was just absolutely blown away by it. It was just a lot of fun, and it
You're too modest.
I don't know. I think I'm pretty honest, truly. Like when I'm jamming with people, if you ever play with me, which we have played a couple times, I'll very seldom take a guitar solo. I'm not a confident guitar soloist. Like I think I'm a solid rhythm guy, and I'll give you some real solid rhythm. But if I'm on stage with a better lead player, which I am much of the time, I'm gonna just let you play. I'm good with it, especially if it's something up tempo, because like I can play okay over a blues ballad, but if it's up tempo, I'm not confident. I'm trying to get better at that. I'm putting some time into getting those chops down. But I have a basic philosophy that if I'm on stage with a better lead player, just let that guy play or let that gal play, whoever it is. I don't need to be the guitar hero. It's all good. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I know way
Okay.
too many great players to just be a good one. That's kind of how I feel.
Well, Yeah, it's all subjective as
Of
well.
course.
But that's like you say, open mics and jam sessions. That's where I cut my teeth too, growing up. So it's nice when you can have those opportunities to build your chops.
True.
And no matter how good you are, or you think you are, or somebody thinks you
Yeah.
are, at the end of the day, it's like you can always learn more. So, like you said, that guy was playing, 300 days a year. Well, every time, I, I, I don't play, I play 300 days every 10 years at the pace I'm going now. But,
Well,
yeah,
you were burning the candle in the early years, I think, because it's funny how often I'll see a picture of you pop up in some band you were playing in from 10, 20 years ago. I know you gigged for years with Russell Jackson, and I got to meet him a couple summers ago through Folk Fest, Folk Music Festival, because we had Shakura Saida come out. Now, you want to talk about, again, imposter syndrome. Shakura's there with this killer band, including Russell Jackson on bass and other wicked players. And again, I'm on that stage going, I mean, you could probably check my pants for moisture. I probably wouldn't have passed. It was, I just, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
I think what I love is it's the exception to meet a great musician who's not also a decent human being. There's a handful of arrogant musicians who are good, but in the great musician category, it's not that common to find a dickhead, and I'm grateful for that. Because
Yeah, no, it's true.
one of the beautiful things was through Laser Cats is that by wild coincidence, Alicia, our powerhouse singer, her stepdad is Jimmy Delane. So we got to hang out. I got to record a bit with Jimmy, and just the most humble guy. And he came in and did a session where he played lead over a couple of tunes. And the guy who was recording had never heard of him, but by the end of it, he was a fan. And he said, "I don't think I've ever heard anyone better than that on guitar." And but what a humble guy. Like, I'm like, dude, that was awesome. He's like, "Oh, thanks, man. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you dug it." Uh it was just, yeah, that was one of those cool connections that I had my 50th birthday party a couple of years ago, and Jimmy came out with Alicia and everyone. And one of my kids is like listening to Jimmy play and going, so it starts Googling him and goes, "Dad, how do you know this guy?" Like, how is this guy sitting in your living room playing guitar? I'm like, yeah, he's just a real good guy who happens. There's a family connection, but just a good guy. You know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know where I got off on a tangent there, but that's normal for me.
No, it's all good. Yeah, no, Jimmy's a good guy, and guys that play at that level, I think that have the confidence, that they don't need to impress anyone. They kind of play for a song,
That's
do
it.
what they love. There's not really that competitive,
Yeah,
I got to take the other guy out,
the head
like
cutting.
there's that. Yeah, the head cutting stuff. And I when I started with Russell in 95, and actually Russell's going to be on a podcast here in the next week or
Oh,
so.
I
We
love
just
it.
did one the other day and kind of reminiscing and stuff. And when I did like 5 year stint with him, there was like in the 90s, there was a lot of that mentality of
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, we're getting up there and we're opening for these guys, but we're going to fucking cut their
yeah,
heads. So they're not going to want to get on, like, let's get up there. And it's like, there was a lot of that, like, but there was off stage, there was never that,
yeah,
same attitude. It was more like, I'm going to kick your ass on the
yeah,
stage and, see if the guy agrees with it or not, But you don't see as much of that anymore, but maybe that's just because people aren't touring and playing like they used to, and there's not as much
yeah. It might be.
on the table. A lot of that generation is kind of like hitting the, you know, retirement, I'll play because I want to, not because I have to,
Yeah, true enough. Right?
kind of vibe.
Well, I tell you what, if I'm on stage with somebody and they're just ripping it up, you'll see me grinning like a Cheshire cat because I'm just, man, that's what it's about. Like, I'm going to play the best I can, and what I want is there to be a good groove, and I want everyone on stage to have a great time, and I want everyone in the audience to have a great time. And if those two things are happening, whatever, it's great. And if somebody's just killing it, like, give them their flowers, man. Like we live in a world where there are so many great guitar players, and there are, but you still hear stuff like I'm in my 50s now, and I'll hear someone, whether it's a kid or someone older or middle age or whatever, and they'll just play something. You'll just go, man, that was just killer. I don't know. I love it. So if I'm jamming with somebody and they're on fire, I'm good with it. Like, do your thing. Like, let it walk it around. Let it breathe. It's beautiful. I love
Yeah.
living in a world where that's a thing. It's the best.
Yeah. I enjoy that too, especially when younger guys get on stage and they take a solo. I just go,
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
going. Give them that moment that kind of they can cut their teeth on and
yeah,
get the itch, like you say. You get the itch, and then you're like, I got to do more of
yeah.
this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So, what projects have you got coming down the pipe now? Are you writing lots? Are you doing any
Yeah.
recording?
So
Or
I'm writing right now. So I my very first album is out, called Harder Times, and that's with the Tony Ivan O'Hara name. That was a weird thing. I will confess that I've wanted to put an album of my own songs out since I was a child, but I just never got around to it, or didn't have, whatever, whether it was confidence or financing or whatever. And
mm-hmm.
the wild thing was that I made a new friend who is a killer guitar player. He's dating one of my sisters, and he came out from Toronto to hang out, and so I got to know him, and we got up and jammed, and there was good chemistry. And at the end of that, they went back to Toronto. We had a really good hang and all that stuff. And they're like, "Yeah, you should come out to Toronto and record." I'm like, "Well, yeah, okay." Now I've been offered the chance to go and record with people. I don't even know how many times, and usually they'll say, "Yeah, you should come record sometime," and I'll go, "Yeah, okay," and then it'll die, and I'm like, "Okay, whatever." Well, they kept asking, and they said, "Look, Tony's not going to charge you for the use of the studio. Just come and play. We'll pay the musicians, and let's do some songs." I mean, who can say no to that? So I
Yeah.
kind of went, "Gee, well, at this point, whatever the flight's going to cost, it's going to cost a lot less than what it'll cost me to book studio time in BC." So I flew out there. We went in. Tony and I spent a day going over songs. Like, I played him a few that I thought would work, and he did some arrangements. I'm a very ear-based guitar player. My theory is non-existent. I can follow a chord chart, but I can't read music to save my life. Tony charted it out.
Same.
Same, yeah. He,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
he charted it out because the some of the musicians he's bringing in are proper studio musicians. So Gord Mowat is an incredible stand-up bass player in Toronto, and he came in and played bass on it. And Adrian, our drummer, just felt it out. And basically, we went in on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Or was it? Yeah, those 3 days. Played everything live off the floor, no overdubs, and I tracked vocals for all but two songs afterwards. Two of the songs we did completely live off the floor, and some that I thought they'd struggle with. Again, this is the arrogance of, I'm a songwriter, I've done something unique. Well, probably not. What's unique in the blues? I don't know. Somebody maybe play it on bagpipes or something. But we went in and they just killed it. And so we did that project in 3 days. And at the end of it, I was happy with the results. Tony tweaked a few things, as far as sound, but really it was pretty much done. So since that, I came back to BC. We had a CD release party out in Mission, and that went well. And so now Jenny and I are gearing up to do our first album. So we're going to fly out to the same studio in February. And the plan is that for just to be a duo project, just the two of us, and we'll record, I don't know, somewhere between 8 and 12 songs. And the hope is going and do that in February. So that's why I'm writing so much, because I'm going, I don't want to record all the same songs I just recorded. We probably will do one or two of those because they've been in our repertoire for so long. But and they'll be different than they are on my album. But really wanted some new stuff. So I've been really trying to hunker down. And I don't know about you, but for me, I'm a constant writer. I write. I've always written all the time. I know most of what I write is garbage, and so I throw that stuff out. But it's really the that kind of catharsis of just get the song going. Sometimes somebody will say something, and I'll say, "That's a good line. That should be a
Mhm.
song." Like I don't know. We had something about Memphis. It's already left me, but yeah. So I'm always writing. So of the songs I've written in the last couple months, there's been maybe a dozen or so songs. Of that dozen, I think three are strong enough to do something with, and then I've got a couple older ones that I want to dust off and brush up. But we'll record in February, and then I want to do another album next year of band material, and maybe I'll record in Toronto, but maybe I'll record it in BC. I've got a couple of musicians in mind who I think would fit the vibe, and I'm a big believer in go in and catch it. I know
Yeah.
some folks love the studio process of, here's the chart, read this, play that. I don't love that. If I'm going into a studio with musicians who know what they're doing, I'll say, here's the song, and if you play bass, I can't tell you what you're going to play because I'm not a bass player. You're going to play something great on bass because you know what you're doing. You're going to play something great on drums. I might give you an idea, but I love there's something in that beast that happens when you've got musicians who know their stuff, and it's always
Mhm.
better to let somebody be them on their instrument than for me to try and prescribe it. And so
Yeah,
that's
no.
always the approach I want to take till I'm dead, which I hope will
Yeah,
be
no,
one day.
I'm yeah, I'm with you on that. Unless a song, with say a bass player's got like a specific melody
Yeah,
or, a bass run or something, let guys just put their own mark on it.
yeah, absolutely.
Kind of go kind of go from there. But yeah, it's interesting to hear your songwriting stuff cuz me like I've written a lot of songs, but I don't know, I guess just the last few years I haven't had anything in me to be motivated to do it
That's
or,
fair.
kind of been bouncing around the album ideas, but I got a bunch out and it's like making another business card.
Right.
Do I really need one? What's it, not that it's like about what's it going to do for me, but
Yeah.
like you said, the cost, it's cheaper to fly to Toronto. You get the experience. That's good for your, personal enjoyment and your mental health and things like that. But I look at it and go, man, you could put 5-10 grand into an album, and that's not a lot of
Easy.
money to put an album out.
Yeah.
And you're probably never going to get it back because where are you going to? Who nobody buys music anymore.
Right.
Like I don't sell music anymore. I sold way more music in the early 2000s, and that just died by 2010.
Yeah.
Essentially, sell some off the stage, but you give somebody a CD, and it's like, where are they going to play it?
Right. Yeah. Well, and
Let's.
that's exactly. I tell you a funny thing is that I started doing was, or not started doing, but I mean, we stream like everybody else, but if there's an artist I know, or an artist I like, or both, I'm just gonna buy their CD. I have nowhere to play that CD, but basically I know I'm gonna stream it, and I'd rather give them something. So if I'm gonna give you $20, I might just be going to stream it on whatever, but at least you got the $20 from the CD sale.
Yeah,
So uh, it's
and
it's a I think the ways left to make money as musicians pretty much is through syncing your songs into TV shows or video games or movies. You can make a good living at that, but that's a whole nother skill and not one that I have. Well, otherwise I'd be doing it.
yeah, it's like that movie scoring, whatever. Yeah, I've never really been tapped into that kind of thing. You spend all your time, dealing with business aspects as opposed to the artistic creativity of, I could sit in a hotel room and write songs and, maybe two or three of the 20 I wrote stick and then you
Right.
play them live every night and then you go record albums and 90% of your time's playing music and 10%'s business.
Yeah.
But there's been a total flip in the industry. I find like the industry, and I've said this on other podcasts, where there used to be a day where you could sell to people that wanted to listen to music. You can't do that anymore. The money is selling to people that want to make music. That's why HMV's out of business and Long and McQuaid's are expanding.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You just
Exactly right.
look at the top level of like what's happening in the industry. And I did a pod with Mike Shindelka. We talked about, it's those memes where it's like, you got a $5,000 guitar, a $500 car,
Yeah.
and you're driving 50 miles for a $50 gig.
Right. Yeah. It's
Like,
true, right? Well, and
yeah,
I mean, I'm lucky because I have a good job. I mean, I've got a good day job, which allows me to play music when I want to for people I want to play it. So I can afford to be a bit of a snob and say, like, I have a basic rule which says, if it ain't fun, I ain't doing it unless it's really lucrative. And it's never really lucrative. So I get to stick to my, there's,
Yeah. No,
I remember playing the Phoenix and places in Abbotsford where they're paying you $100 a night. And I tell you what was another world changing moment. This was maybe 10 years ago. I'm playing at this little pub in Abbotsford. Probably was the Phoenix. I think it's burnt down now, so nobody will sue me for this. But the pay was terrible. So I get up there, $100. I'm playing. I'm covering 3 to 4 hours of music. So good for my dues paying and building up my endurance, which has stayed with me for these years. I'm playing, 3, 4 hours, singing my guts out, playing my guitar, doing everything I can possibly do. I can't do loopers, so I'm just doing chord solos and whatever I can do. So I finish. I'm spent. I've done my thing. Well, there's a DJ coming in. It's a Friday night, so I might have got 150 that night because I think Fridays they paid 150. DJ is setting up, and I finish my thing. I'm like, hey man, how's it going? Oh, good, good. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty dead here tonight, and it was. There's like 4 people in the bar, and he says, yeah. He says, well, it's never really busy, but at least the pay's pretty good. And I'm thinking, pay's pretty
oh
good.
no.
I get $100 to 150. And so I said, yeah, what are you getting paid? And he says, I got $400 to DJ from 11 to 3 till 2 in the morning. And I said, $400 to DJ. And he's like, yeah, yeah. Is that about what they're paying you? I'm like, no. And I went, what am I doing? So at that point, I got a little more selective about where I wanted to play. And I will say, so Jenny makes her full time living through music. Sometimes lessons, sometimes gigs, sometimes she's got a songbook out, which is great, especially if you're into fiddle or folk tunes. And so she's more picky than I am about what gigs to take because she'll say, I'll say this is what it pays, and she'll kind of go, I think you're worth more than that. And I think I'm worth more than that. And I think collectively we're definitely worth more than that. So you have to have some sense of pride and you know understanding of what your worth is when you go into a place. So the gigs have gotten better playing with her because she has standards and
Yep.
she knows that listen, you can do a lot of things, but you probably can't find that many fiddle players playing funk, blues, and rock and roll and doing it with style and making it fun. So there's something to be said there. But yeah, I'll never forget
Yep.
that the $400 for the DJ, and I'm going, what am I doing? My wife came out.
Hey man,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I opened some shows at the Commodore for some pretty big names
Yep.
over the years, and I remember literally going in there with like 4-piece, 5-piece bands, and they're like, "Yeah, $150,
Yeah.
legit." Like the last time I opened for a band at the Commodore was quite a few years ago, probably. Oh man, 08,
Yeah.
06, 07, or somewhere about that. Fabulous Thunderbirds. They literally paid us $150. It was enough to just give everybody some gas money to get
That's
there.
for not each. That's the entire band.
That's the entire
Gee.
band.
Well, and what's
It was like
yeah,
an exposure gig, and granted, yeah, okay, that's
that's good.
a pretty good fun gig to do, right? But people see this like, oh man, you were opening for the T-Birds at the
Yeah.
corner. It was like, yeah, I should have fucking played underneath the Keno board at the pub down the street. I probably could have got more money.
Yeah.
Like,
It's tough to know because a lot of when bands are young and hungry, they'll take those gigs, right? Because they're young and hungry.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay, I'll eat some feces for a bit because I want to get my name out there. But the challenge we have now is there's nowhere to go. Like, where are you going to, okay, so I played a gig at, I don't know, I'll just pick at the Rooster or someplace. My next gig's going to be at the 14th Avenue pub. I mean, no disrespect to them. I've played there. I like it. It's great. They're good to me. But it's not like you're going up in the world. You're just playing another $200 gig or whatever. So yeah, it's tough. Boy, you gotta love it if you're doing this, but it's nice when the love is rewarded, and you can actually make a living at it. I think if I'd been born into different circumstances, maybe I would have made a go of that. But I grew up poor and I grew up hungry, and so I wanted a job that was guaranteed, and I have one of those. Um, I'm not wealthy, but I'm not poor, and I'm certainly not hungry anymore.
Yeah.
But I get to play
Yeah,
because
I
I love
find
it.
well, and that's just it, getting to play because you love it. Because I find now I couldn't care if I was on stage in front of 5 or 10,000 people, which I've done
Cool.
years and years ago, or playing at the Dudney pub in front of 50 or 100 people, whatever they pack in
Yeah.
that place. Because I play because I want to, not because I have to. Of course, I keep the standards like you were talking about, but it's like I don't care if there's 4 people in the room. If those 4 people are dancing and having a good time and,
Yeah.
cheers, right?
Yeah.
Let's, hang out and have like, that's good enough for me. If one person leaves and is like, hey, cool,
Yeah.
but yeah, you literally have to play 600 shows a year because you're playing for, 40, 50 people at a
Yeah.
time. If you're looking for fame and fortune, you're not going to get it.
Well, and this is where festivals are kind of beautiful because typically you will expose yourself. I should word that differently. You'll expose your music to lots of people who wouldn't have heard you otherwise.
cut the cheese, expose
That's it.
yourself.
What kind of podcast is this?
Well, yeah, exactly. You're gonna get us
But I
banned.
tell you what, through doing the folk fest, I mean, I've gotten to meet some of my heroes I've met there. The Russell Jackson thing was pretty great. Listen, if you touched a stage where BB King was standing, you're great in my books. And that dude is one of the best bass players on the planet. But this year, I got to share a stage with a guy named Jerron Blindboy Paxton, who's just a mind-meltingly great player of everything. Jesse Waldman, who's a Vancouver guy. Guys out here don't know him super well, but if you ever get a chance to see the Jesse Waldman trio play blues, it, it's just so good. Shakura Saida, like I mentioned, Cecile Dekinge. A lot of people don't know her. She's from Montreal. One of Canada's best blues guitar players, criminally underknown and undervalued, but this lady can absolutely rip it up on her 335. And a lot of her music's French, so people won't give it a go. But Canada is drowning in incredible blues musicians, and it's just a matter of getting to know them. We had a guy, Danny Boy Phelan, came out from Toronto to the Dudney about a month ago, and again another. You're just going, how does everybody in the world not know these guys? Well, I mean, number one, the blues is not as popular as it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Um, it's still massively popular, but if you're blues famous, you're famous with blues fans. You're not world famous. So even our most
Yeah.
successful blues guys and gals, they're playing at the festivals for a big crowd, but probably day to day for not that big a crowd, unless you're a Buddy Guy or somebody who's got that 50 years career. I know Bonnie Raitt still packs them,
Yeah.
Buddy still packs them, but we've got up and coming guys as good as anyone ever. But it's not the thing. So
No,
we
and
love it.
blues has never been the thing, and that's what's cool, that you diverse like a little bit out of it. For me, I've always kind of been like a stagnant blues guy, and it's never been mainstream, but I've always been able to work.
Right.
Because a lot of the people I know that have like been on a higher pop level, it's like when that style of music is no longer at that level, you can go from playing, Orpheum theaters or
Yeah.
stadiums to small clubs, which I've seen in some people be a huge hit to your ego,
Right.
because you hit this peak and then it just dies. You
Right.
go from playing for thousands of people every night to hundreds.
Yeah. Yeah. True enough. Yeah. But
You
it's
know
one thing, like whether it's popular or not popular. I'm still gonna sing it. I'm still gonna play it. I'm still gonna listen to it because I love it,
exactly.
and it connected with
Yep.
me as a snot-nosed 15-year-old kid in a way that no other music has. And I tell you what, when I'm listening to Muddy or I'm listening to Jimmy Rogers, who you know um, is not as well known as should be, but has some of the best songs in history, or I'm listening to some of the old, whether it's Charlie Patton or Robert Johnson or whatever it is, like there's just music there that connects at a level that's, boy, uh, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it for me, anyway. I know I hear people who don't like it, and they'll say, "Oh, it all sounds the same." It's like, well, no, it doesn't. Sister Rosetta doesn't sound the same as Muddy Waters. Uh,
Yeah,
you know,
I think that's just the lack of education of a music. I know a lot of blues people that don't think blues all sounds the same, but they think, rap or hip hop all sounds
right?
the same
Yeah,
because they're not
they're not
educated in that
educated.
style. So they don't know the tones. And if you
Sure.
listen to enough of it, you're going to go, hey, it's not the same country. You could probably point that out. But granted, I will give people the benefit of the doubt. Nobody's, when I see these people suing like Marvin Gaye or,
Right, right,
what's his name, Robin Thicke, for like stealing a song, that Blurred Lines thing. I'm like, man, nobody's suing the blues
right.
guys. They're stealing against each other all the time, but they must not be suing blues guys because there's no fucking money to
That's
get.
it. That's it.
Nobody made $50 million on their blues song.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and
So why sue them? But everybody's playing a 12-bar blues in the same key in the same tempo.
sure.
Why?
Well, and that's where it gets dicey. I mean, because it's like, who wrote, pick an old blues song. I mean, um, Blind Lemon and guys like that were definitely pioneers, but there's a lot of found lyrics and a lot of blues history. So by the time the 40s have rolled around, some of these songs had already been rolling around for 30, 40, 50 years. And
Yeah, and
that's how it
I
is.
think the laws. I think the laws actually for that are like, if you wrote a song and you die, and within 50 years of your death, it becomes public
Right,
domain in terms of ripping it off.
right.
Don't quote me on that. Don't
No, it's
send me
something
hate
like
mail.
that. It might even be
Something
shorter.
like
It
that.
might even be shorter than that. And that's where, I mean, if you want to talk about an injustice in music, it's that, the record labels have the power to enforce their copyrights forever. But if you're an artist, scraping by,
Yeah.
it's not the same. It's just craziness. So we're in the place we are with popular music and with music as an income, largely because we had an unsustainable model for so long where the record companies made money, or but the artist would make
Yeah.
a sliver of that money, and usually get bamboozled. And all the people that who we worship at their altar, these were people mostly died with very little money to show and very little legacy right at that moment. So yeah, it's I think we always got to be paying it forward. So shine the spotlight on all those artists, and make sure that people know where it came from. And when you see somebody coming up and doing it, give them some love and all that stuff. It's just yeah, we're in it because we love it. There's no two ways about it. And I think if you blues music, when it's done right, is just honest in a way that few other musics are honest. You met talking about, throwing it back to the comment regarding hip hop, and it's true. A lot of people don't hear difference from one to the other. I look at hip hop in 2024 as this is the blues music of now. Like, if you want to talk about a music that is reflecting a reality uh, of people's lives, and that, and is also massively popular, this is modern blues to a large extent. At least that's the way my brain registers it. Um, as
Mm-hmm.
as a middle-aged white guy playing blues, I don't want to be a cosplayer, but sometimes you do feel like a cosplayer. I mean, am I singing from my heart? Sure. Am I singing songs about my own experience? Absolutely. I'm not going to lie in my music, but I can't pretend that my life looked like Muddy Waters' life looked like, or BB King's life looked like, or certainly Robert Johnson or any of the guys. We don't have, most of us anyway, don't have those experiences. I mean, thank God we don't, or thank whoever we don't. But for the people writing, again, in the hip hop world, these guys are writing what they know. Some of it is coming from
Yeah.
a lot of pain and a lot of hardships that I'll never know. I can't know, but I just give them my respect, because what else can I do? And while I'm
Mm-hmm.
playing music that's blues influenced, I'm recognizing. we're all standing on the shoulders of these giants, and we've got to
Yeah.
give them a lot of love because the world looks very different if Willie Dixon doesn't break out those tunes, or whoever else we've been ripping off for 100 years.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, when you hear that, we've all tried to sound like BB with one of those bent notes or one of those butterfly vibratos, or play those Hendrix double stops or whatever it is, man. Like, how fortunate are we to have that wealth of music to draw on and get to love and listen to and share it with people and play. I mean, who's luckier than a blues musician in terms of cultural richness and musical richness and depth and love? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
love it.
that's a that's a great way to look at it, for sure.
Yeah,
So for people to follow you, what is it? TonyIvanO'HaraMusic.com, and then your Facebook.
yeah. If you
Do you have a Facebook page or
Yeah,
just your
yeah.
profile?
It's if you look up Tony Ivan O'Hara music, listen, it's a mouthful. I know it. But if you just plug in those words through Google or through whatever, you'll find me. There's no one else yet with that terrible assemblage of names. I don't know that it works, but it's me, so I'm stuck with it. I always joke that every band name is terrible because it's true. The band name becomes not terrible because the band's good. But we can't pretend the Beatles is a great name, or pick a band name. They're all awful, but if it's good. So my hope is
Yeah.
I'll be good enough that Tony Ivan O'Hara doesn't sound ridiculous when you hear it.
I don't think it does. I feel like it suits you, but
I guess
I've
it's
been
me.
beat over the head with it for quite a few years.
That's
So
it. Like James Buddy Rogers. I
yeah,
tell you, I'll
exactly.
tell you a funny one. When I first heard your name, I thought, I wonder if he's a big wrestling fan,
Oh
because
yeah,
I am.
Buddy
And
Rogers.
Buddy Rogers
Yeah.
was famously a very popular wrestler in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, yeah. If you're gonna Google me, you got to put James in
You
there.
got to,
Otherwise, you're
or you're
gonna
going to
get
get
killed.
wrestling.
And if you don't put Buddy in there and you just put James Rogers, there might be a mix-up between me and some country guy out of New York,
Yeah, that's right.
which just seems wrong. It's like, you're a country guy. Where are you from? I'm from Long Island. No, I don't know where he's from, but I think it's from New York or
That's
something.
it, eh?
It's like, yeah,
It all spreads.
it's like, for sure. But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here. And again, what is Tony Ivan O'Hara Music?
Sure, you'll
I'm
find
on
me.
your site right now. So I was looking. Yeah, you got a good discography there. Strongbow Rye, Roads Unknown, and all your socials. So yeah, I'll put this in the description when we throw this one out there.
Cool, man.
And again, I appreciate you taking the time on here. And maybe we'll see you at one of these. I'll try and make it out to one of your open mic nights and check it
Oh,
out.
that'd be cool, man. Well, I'll definitely see you at the Dudney
Yeah,
one of these days.
for
I
sure.
haven't made it work most of the times yet, but the odd time. But yeah, no, I think it'd
Yeah.
be fun to share a stage again, because I think we got to jam a bit at a gig out in Poco. I think it was at Kingfishers or somewhere. Oh no,
Yeah.
not what's the one? It was not Poco. It's the one in more Maple Ridge. Are they still doing music there? Yeah.
Kingfishers in Maple Ridge. Yeah, they're still doing music
Okay.
there. I'm not playing as much as I was in the pre-COVID eras, but playing more around town and stuff. But we'll share a stage again. We'll have to make it happen.
This stuff you can edit out of the podcast, probably. The rambling,
Nah, fuck it.
all the rambling.
Fuck
There's
it. We'll
going to be a
leave it
lot of
in.
rambling because that's what I do.
That's all right. I don't usually edit these. I just cut the beginning and the end and throw it out there. It takes me like 5 minutes.
Oh, that works out. Well, the cat almost made it in, but she got shy at the last minute.
Did she leave?
Yeah, she came in, sniffed around, and
Oh, you should have.
I wasn't giving her somewhere to land, so she moved on. She's
Well, that's all
fickle.
right. We don't mind. We don't mind cats on the podcast.
I love them. I love them.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been a good one, and we'll see you further on down the road.
Thanks, man. Thanks for chatting me up and taking an interest. See you out there on the stages, making those dozens
You
of
bet.
dollars,
Hundreds.
hundreds of dollars.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.